I think there's four things that someone should be thinking about today that might be a little different than pre-COVID. The first is you have to prepare in advance for what's most likely going to be a video experience versus something face-to-face. And I think that will be ongoing even as businesses open back up. The second is doing research and preparing. A lot of times we know who we're going to interview with or the people we're going to meet. We certainly know the company that we're going to have a conversation with. But, taking time to understand that is very important. The third thing is that you have homework, and that's that you really should be coming up with good questions to ask. I believe that most times our questions are a bit more self-serving, like how much vacation time do I get, or, when will I get paid, or how much do I get paid, when we really should be asking better questions than that. And then finally, practicing how you interview. None of us interview for a living, so anything worth doing is worth practicing.
Yeah, great points. And to start at point one, you mentioned the fact that it's going to be a virtual face-to-face more than likely. I mean, really familiarizing yourself, if you're not already, with the technology to make yourself look as good as you can, to make sure that you're technically set up on your end so things don't go kerflooey in the middle of everything. That's part of the preparation.
There's so many good points, and there's so many video interfaces today. Some of them need to be downloaded. Getting in early to see if you have technical difficulties. In just the old days of February, you wanted to find out where you were driving before the interview, getting there early. Today, you need to make sure your technology turns on successfully 15 minutes beforehand. Some other things, Pete, a lot of times we're not quite sure where to look. So looking at your webcam versus the screen, we know to look at an interviewer's face, but it's a very different experience. And then finally, finding a quiet, well-lit space away from distractions and background noise, as hard as that can be, it's important. But I also think it's important to be open. And I think that all of us are more tolerant of barking dogs and kids interrupting. But
Right.
Make sure you let the interviewer know if they can expect the lawn to be cut or kids in the next room. I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, understanding what you're up against. In terms of your second point, maybe you were going to this, that obviously you want to familiarize yourself with the position that you are applying for. But does your research kind of go beyond that to know as much about the company and maybe even the person that you're talking to?
I believe that's absolutely the case. First of all, you've got to figure out culturally how that business dresses today, even over a video chat. So what is business casual? What is professional? And what does that mean? But the research for the people, now there are things like LinkedIn. Certainly the Internet is a great tool to do general searches. But learning a bit about the people you're meeting with, maybe their career paths, their accomplishments, even things you have in common, places you went to school together, places you've lived, articles they like. I don't think there's anything wrong with investing in the people you're going to meet with to find out what's important to them and make common connections.
Yeah, and I think the third point you made is really important. I think a lot of people, and not on purpose, but spend so much time getting themselves prepped for what they need to answer that the asking, and it always inevitably comes to that, what questions do you have for me? They haven't done their homework there, and those questions can be a real key in making a difference between you and another candidate.
Pete, if you know me, I'm a real stickler for this. I encourage people to come up with 5 questions. They should be written down. It's okay to tell the interviewer that you have some prepared notes. It's very honorable to do so. But you're absolutely right. If your question is, as I suggested before, something that's purely self-serving, that's not necessarily your intent, and it doesn't put your best foot forward. Questions about what success looks like in the role, or maybe what I could expect in my role in the first year, are sincere and authentic. It's just not, the fact-finding that you have to separate the fact-finding from what you need to make a good decision from questions that help you understand the job you hope to get.
It's 9:41 here on Delaware. I'm Peter MacArthur. We're talking with Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing in Newark. You mentioned, too, Chris, practicing interviewing. Yes, we don't all do this very often at all. What do you mean by that specifically?
Well, and this is probably the thing that I've given the most advice on Pete, and people are least likely to do, and that's to practice, to come up with a list of questions. You can find them on the internet. You could, if you're interested, Placers would provide you with some standard questions. But to come up with your best answer, again, it's an authentic answer. But if you haven't thought about the question and what your answer is, when you go to do it live on a video experience, you're not often going to give the answer that you'd like. Being able to speak to your resume and be prepared to give specific examples about your past experiences. Being prepared to answer questions about your character, about maybe a failure or how you overcame something. Again, any of those things, just as you hear me say them, you probably pause and say, well, I would need some time to prepare. That's what this is about, preparing to give your authentic answer.
Also, we talk about the numbers of people, like we did at the very top of the interview, that are in this mix right now. And people that are offering jobs, employers that do have positions, must be getting flooded with resumes. For some people, they realize, maybe I need to get a leg up, and maybe that for me is a temporary agency, a temp agency. How should people evaluate that? How do you go about getting involved or connected with a temp agency that works?
Well, I recommend 3 or 4 things. The first is to understand the realities of jobs today, and that's that around 40% of jobs are going to be with a third party. That includes temporary or agency firms. So the right temporary firm can be an excellent broker to allow you to evaluate the brand names of companies that you may know and admire. And it's just an incredible way to get those opportunities. And we often use the word try before you buy. Well, if you're a temporary employee for a period of time, you can determine if you like the work, if you like leadership, the culture of the business. And frankly, employers love this option too. The other things is I think you should be interviewing the staffing firm. Mm-hmm. Do they have customers that need and want your skills and occupation? Is that their area of expertise? And how do you work on their behalf? Will they assist you in your resume, maybe in the interview preparation stuff that I talked about? And they can help you get that resume together, and don't be afraid to ask for that kind of assistance.
Yeah. I think nowhere is the phrase second place is the first loser, perhaps, that when it comes to a job search. You put so much into this whole process, assembling your materials, practicing like you're talking to, getting ready for the interview, doing the interview, maybe multiple interviews, and you come up short, Chris, and it's devastating to a lot of people. This kind of thing, the setbacks, plus you're unemployed, can be really hard to get over. How do you keep kind of your head up in this process?
A couple of things. Don't immerse yourself in watching any news or social media 24/7, I guess, other than listening to your show, Pete. How about that? It can bring you down. Yeah. Instead of spending your free time doing that, do a new skill, reading, working, frankly, working on some of the things that you're good at in your career. The other is to focus on what you can control, and that can help motivate you in your job search for whatever happens next. But most importantly is you have to give 100% to your search and be prepared for some level of disappointment. I mean, you're going to hear some no's. As you said, that there's more people looking. But being positive, knowing that there are ups and downs, and that's the reality, can help you get through it. The other thing I find is maintaining your network. Your network is the people that you may know through trade shows or people you've worked with previously, your references, your recruiter. Proactively reaching out to them and talking about the job market, talking about places you'd like to know more about. Maybe they can offer insights as to jobs that would be appropriate for you. But most importantly, they can give you a different perspective than if you're just staring at social media, seeing the doom and gloom.
Yeah, great points. And for those who are listening that want to get a better feel for what a Placer Staffing is all about, so where should they turn, Chris?
Well, just Google Placers Active Kindness, or our website is www.myplacers.com. And again, anyone that finds themselves in any part of the job search, we've decided just to offer free of charge any resume work, any interviewing prep, and certainly any of the points we covered today, Pete.
All right. Sounds great. Chris Burkhard joining us. Chris, thanks so much, and we'll talk again next week. How about it?